Hello, welcome to our new Commercial Real Estate Broker Forum that we host on the behalf of NICAR, our Northern Illinois Commercial Association of Realtors. All associations are welcome to come. We encourage particularly commercial brokers to participate so they can advertise their number one priority, whether it be landlord, tenant, buyer, seller. So whatever your commercial real estate need is, we encourage for you to advertise that during the session. And sometimes at the beginning of these, we will have something informational. So we always will put our recordings. This is a recorded session. We will put them on the NICAR webpage, the Broker Forum page, as well as the NICAR YouTube so that you can reference them later. And for today, we have a special guest. So in the past, we had someone from CoStar to give the analytics for the Chicago marketplace. You can also reference our CGBN, where we did a market overlook in all the major gateway cities. But today we are focused on what happens at exchange meetings. And I wanted to introduce this concept to this group so that we could start thinking about different ways of transacting in real estate. And so for the past year and some months, I have been going to two different organizations, NCE and SCC. And these are two different exchange groups. And I thought I would invite someone who also regularly goes to those two different organizations and participates and is very knowledgeable in different ways in transacting, 1031. He's going to go over that. Blake Allen, he is a CCIM. He's an experienced commercial broker, has many properties that he owns. He can talk a little bit about what he does there. And he's on LinkedIn. He's going to talk about a session that he's going to offer for free. So I do encourage everyone to listen to what he has to offer and then ask questions when he's done. So Blake, without further ado, if you want to talk a little bit about understanding exchange meetings and any other information you thought would be pertinent to commercial brokers in today's environment.
Thank you, Teresa. This will be pretty informal. It's, since we have a short period of time here and, certainly not comprehensive, but I'd like to introduce, to you folks some of the ideas of what we do at exchange meetings. If you do have any questions, please feel free to chime in and raise your hand, and I can watch the screen and answer your question. But and I'm glad to see you have Mr. Smullen here as well. He has been doing this as long as I have, certainly, and can is a local expert for you to help you navigate this whole new world. So National Council of Exchangers and Society of Exchange Counselors are two of the national organizations that have exchange meetings, which is where we focus a little bit differently than we do in regular buy and sell real estate. It used to be from the 60s that there was an exchange group in almost every real estate association, realtor association. Our one in the Springs, Colorado Springs is where I'm from, has been active for over 60 years. It's from 1963. So there aren't a whole lot of them that are still up and running like that. But what we do, our focus is on the people rather than on the property. Okay, so we talk about the benefits to the property that the properties have to the people who own them and why the different people want to go out of ownership. Okay, a property has a certain set of benefits and good income. And if we're dealing with commercial properties, they're great things that everybody wants to own. But here we are as brokers or as people who want to get into commercial real estate. And in order to be able to buy it, somebody has to sell it, which means they have a reason that they want to go out of title. These reasons can be personal. Age is the classic one. They want to go up to bigger properties. Most people, when they're going to sell real estate, turns out most of them are going to buy other real estate. And so that's sort of the basis behind exchanging, is to find out, well, they're looking to go from this set of benefits that they have that's great. Where are they looking to go to? And why? Or maybe the set they have isn't great for them. Maybe it's not a good match and they want to find something that's a better match for them. So this is about the clients and getting to know them real well. And we do client counseling, which means we spend a little bit more time interviewing our clients and finding out when they sell that property, what are they going to do with that money? And how are we being beneficial? And should they do a 1031? What's the best for them? So, our marketplace is all about the motivation and the benefits and the people. So in Illinois, I imagine, and most states, I'm from Colorado, Our listing agreement says that we can't discuss their motivations, including willingness to take other than the full price according to the terms that they said. Well, what we do and what I would ask all of you to do in your listing agreements is to, when you have an attorney draw up a clause that says, we have the right to talk about your motivations, including your willingness to take less than the full price in cash in the context of marketing sessions for the purpose of getting you a successful transaction. We can't just talk about them, for no reason. The whole purpose here is to help make a transaction that will benefit them. And, that may just be selling it, depending on what the whole discussion has. Or when you do the counseling, it may turn out they should just refinance the property. So all of this is about focusing on the people first. And of course, the property is important, but that's a separate discussion because they want to go out of title to this property, and you're trying to, somewhat convince other people to go into title. So we need to find out why and what they may be able to add. And I appreciated Teresa had a list for that she sent to everybody of all the different things that your clients could potentially do to help make a transaction. And that's sort of the spirit. The real estate formulas that we use, ways to put together the transactions, they come out of the counseling when we see what benefits that we want to do. So, and I guess I should, as I'm seeing the chat here, I should let you know, so you can see full classes that I do on YouTube on the channel is just called 1031 Paper, just 1031 Paper, and has full classes. I will be teaching a class again this Thursday, and it will, we're going to have an all-day marketing session. This first one's free, so I'd invite all of you to attend. We're going to have Chuck Trice will do a first about an hour on exchanging and basically what I'm talking about now. I will teach the 1031 Paper for about an hour, and then in the afternoon we'll have 4 hours of Zoom marketing session where we trade property. Chuck Trice has a YouTube channel that's called Equity Marketing Real Estate, and it has a lot of good information. And I know Mr. Smolin has a lot of good information out there as well on what we do. So, so to the marketplace itself. So these NCE meetings, when you go out to Las Vegas and there are 100 people in the room, it's the most like the stock exchange or the Chicago Board of Trade that you're going to find in real estate. Okay. You've got people presenting properties and with moderators asking them questions, and you've got people, brokers in the crowd representing clients who say, hey, I'm a taker for that property under the right terms and conditions. And generally I'm a taker of it with this thing that I have. There are dozens of brokers with inventory from all over the country. And we also, in your local groups, you're going to have a whole bunch of people from your local area. The more people from the Chicago area you can get out to the NCE meetings, the more activity you're going to have for your listings and for local stuff. But really what Teresa's trying to build here is the key to exchange groups is getting a few dozen like-minded people and working together in your marketplace to solve problems for your clients. Because it's not always, their motivation's not always positive. A lot of times it's negative. They've got a problem, and we end up being problem solvers and dream makers. And that's kind of what we appreciate doing. How we do marketing is benefits-based marketing, we call it. It's, again, I've said it over and over again, focused on the client rather than the property, but it's really on the deal. And how do we put together a transaction that will get this client from point A to point B? And, who may have inventory that has those benefits that can make sense for an exchange. So the presenters go up to the podium and have a moderated presentation for generally 4 to 6 minutes. They have a moderator who's generally a very experienced exchanger who knows how to ask questions that aren't yes and no questions that lead to drawing out information. The key to the whole thing is the takers from the audience. Okay. If somebody says, I like that property, I would take it under some terms and conditions. I may say, hey, this is a commercial building. It's $3 million commercial building. I love it. I've got a $500,000 piece of development ground. Your people may or may not want the development ground, but I certainly am a taker for yours, and I would give my development ground and $2.5 million in cash for your $3 million commercial property if you'd be interested. And so you need to ask that client instead of making the assumption that of what they'll do, because they may have some, if you've counseled them and you know them well, it really helps to know whether they're willing to take it. But that counts as a like kind exchange. They're not going to get taxed on that land, and they just got $2.5 million. They can go 1031 or deal with. That may be better for them because they now still have $500,000 invested in equity in real estate. So there's just an example, but the key is you bring that $3 million wonderful commercial property and find out how many people are takers for it. In the buy-sell market, those takers are all with cash. We now are opening the marketplace because we're looking at all takers with anything and trying to see if that solves the benefits for our clients. There are a lot of times we do seller carries, particularly in this market where interest rates are upside down. A 4% loan in this market is a better loan than a 9% loan for the borrower and for the lender. Okay. If you want to sell that 7 cap property and they got to pay an 8% loan, everyone's running into that. If you can sell that 7 cap property and it's still going to be able to be sold with a 4% loan, you probably have more people who will take it. Somebody who has other piece of real estate may like that 4% loan, that piece of paper, instead of their property, or they see it as a vehicle to move through it, and you use that to buy it with. So just to open some ideas of different ways we do it. There's seller carries, there are 1031s, there's straight exchanges, all these things we do in these marketing sessions. And there's a lot of education goes on telling us what, a whole bunch of people coming up with different ideas for your transaction. So it's very, very beneficial when that happens. We're going to have, like I said, on Thursday, a Zoom meeting that's an all day kind of thing. So everybody can get real familiar with that. I recommend all of you go out to National Council of Exchangers. It's in April's the next one. They go 4 times a year. It's inexpensive. The hotel's inexpensive. You get a day of education and 3 days of marketing. It's a very good deal, and you will make good amounts of money. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. But what we can do here is we can also show you the form, the format that we use. But first of all, any questions from anybody about exchange meetings or what we do? And ideally, you'd create out of this group here, you'll learn these principles and just start doing it, because there's probably enough inventory and enough brokers on here to get going. Steve, you got any questions before we go over a Reno form?
Actually, Blake, thanks for joining us here in the Chicago area. I wanted to add a little bit to what you said, as opposed to having questions for you. One of the things that I've found in this marketplace over the years is we have a set way of doing things for so many years, and we don't necessarily understand why we need to consider doing things different than we have in the past. As you know, I started teaching the Introduction to Equity Marketing at NCE last year, and I'll be doing it again this year. I did it in January, and I'll be doing it again this year. I think that's what I did. Anyway, we've just come out of a market cycle, and we found at recent NCE meetings that at least half the people in the room have been in the real estate business for less than 10 years. So they've really never known a market where cash and credit were not cheap and plentiful in the marketplace. And Blake, you've been around for a long time. I've been around for a few years, and we've seen different market cycles over those years. And we've seen what happens to the market when cash dries up and when credit becomes very expensive. And by past standards, today's interest rates are not high interest rates. They're very much closer to normal if we look over the period of our very own lifespan. These are more like normal interest rates. But the market slows way down. And so we need to start expanding our mind to alternative ways of accomplishing our goals. Now, profiteers in the marketplace, people that are just looking for that sucker that's going to buy their property at a 3 cap or a 4 cap because they're in love with it, or they think it's a great deal and they don't know any better, or whatever their other foolish motivations might be for overpaying for property. Those people are still going to transact, but the rest of the marketplace is really going to pull back and look for alternative means. So now we get to the people that need to sell their property. And there's a lot of people right now that have loans resetting that have no choice because they can't borrow the amount of money today that they owe on that property, because with the rise in the interest rates, the existing income can no longer support that debt. So that puts a lot of people in a position that they need to sell that property or face foreclosure, because the lender's not going to roll that loan. They're not going to redo it. The lender can't afford to roll that loan because their cost of money has gone up so drastically. So now we have here a segment of perceived equity with an owner that is in a position that they must sell. At a marketing session right here in the Chicago suburbs, I'm a long past president of the Chicago Area Real Estate Exchangers. And at a meeting of the Chicago Area Real Estate Exchangers, I made an offer of a free and clear house to another broker in the meeting whose client was facing foreclosure. He was going to lose his commercial property, and the broker insisted, oh, no, he's in trouble. He only wants cash. He can only accept cash. And sadly, that offer never made it to that owner of that property, and the guy lost his property in foreclosure. The argument I made is, I don't know your client, but I know your client enough to know that he would rather have a free and clear house and somebody else pay off his loan than to have a foreclosure on his record and have nothing. We're in that kind of a marketplace now where people are being confronted with the loss of property because they can no longer refinance in the current interest rate environment. And so we're forced at times to evaluate, what can we do to facilitate a transaction? I'm not doing this presentation, so I haven't loaded up a slide for you, but Blake and Teresa are familiar. They've seen the slide that the CCIM, an exchanger out of California, Bill Broadbent, put together. And it says, if there are two takers with cash in the marketplace for your property, two people that will invest with cash for your property in the marketplace, then there's 4 times more takers that will accept that property if you'll sell it for notes, if you'll accept paper for that property. And there's 6 times more takers for that property if you'll accept some other kind of property for your property, for the equity in your property. And there's 8 times more takers if you can be geographically flexible with where you'll accept property. And there's 12 times more takers for your property if you can actually add some cash to your transaction. The point being, and I'll wrap up with this, is we're no longer in that cheap and plentiful cash and credit marketplace. Some of us have clients that need to be open to alternative means of accomplishing not just their goals, but their actual needs at this moment in time.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better, Steve. And so just an example to carry that back, if that person had taken Steve's house or even a piece of land, they would be better off. So in the example I was giving of a $3 million commercial property and taking a $500,000 piece of land down, when we talk about the motivation of the seller, and now suddenly they really have a $2 million loan that they can't refinance because the debt service coverage ratio, Now that $500,000 of land and the $2.5 million worth of cash is really, really, really attractive because it's going to solve their problem. They're going to have some money. They can still do a 1031 into something else, but they're going to be facing these rates. So they'll have some tax consequences, but goodness, that would be such a wonderful solution. And then they've got a piece of land or Steve's little house. So here, Teresa has on the screen the Reno form. Okay, it should have a big title. Where's the title? Where's your title? Okay, Flex Industrial. A lot of times the title is bigger, but maybe I'm just thinking weird because I'm looking at different systems. Anyhow, we have here, I'll just go over the different parts of the form. So this is different than your commercial information exchange. The stuff from that commercial information exchange is basically the very top part of this, or your MLS listings, the very top part of it. So this property is free and clear and has no debt. So the equity equals the value. If it had a $500,000 loan, the equity there would say 600,000, and that's really what they have to spend. Fortunately for Teresa, her client, it has a free and clear property, which makes it a lot easier to exchange. It's a flex industrial, 12,000 square feet near O'Hare and expressways. So you guys will know somewhere based on that Lawrence Avenue address where it is in Chicago. It's industrial property, flex use. You can see all the details here. And this is one that, Teresa can present. In fact, we can go through the whole presentation. We talk about I won't go through the specifics, so I'll let her do that. Basically, we talk about the title, what it is, what you have. So that's basically your MLS pitch right there. Then we talk about the benefits to the owner. Okay. And I would rewrite that for you there, Teresa, at some point. What you've done there is describing the property. And what I would say is free and clear, owner user space, or, can have a tenant, and we've got projected income down here, some of the, it's an income property, good location, all the specific benefits an owner's going to have. The seller could carry. There's all kinds of different potentials that we would have there. Then below that, she's got the projected income. We would also a lot of times like to know what the actual income, but I'm assuming this is vacant. So that's another benefit that should be in there. It's a vacant property. So for the right person.
Just to clarify, there's 4 parcels, and one of the 4 parcels is vacant. The rest is leased.
Okay. All right. So you could put the actuals and then say, here, this is what the upside is on the rest of it. But basically, this is almost an 8 cap. So go ahead and scroll down a little more. Their motivation, and we like that. A lot of people try to give a 1 to 10. Well, their motivation is they want to retire. Okay. Well, that's a good thing, because for me and Steve and other exchangers, the first thing you think is exactly what she says next. We'll consider seller financing. Most buyers prefer entire structure, but Butler said new buyer can negotiate potential buyout with tenants. So that's apparently what Teresa's saying is, so you're saying you think this property may sell for more if it were vacant? Okay, and so that would be an additional benefit for somebody if they did want to go through that. But bottom line is here, here's talking about motivations and some of the rest, and some of the other things they'll do. So and even though you see her on the remarks, what she's saying she'll take, the reality is, if you have that piece of land to put down and want the seller carry, or can go bring a new loan, or if you've got a different piece of real estate that you want to trade that, is a one with tenants, or, whatever it is, don't hesitate to make the offer. Okay. Because now this person wants to retire. That may be the next step towards their retirement. You never know. And plus you always ask. You never know what they're going to do. So that's pretty much all I have. What we do now, and we can just do a moderated presentation. In fact, Steve, if you want to do that, you can moderate Teresa here if nobody has any questions. And then what we'd like to do for everybody is, when you have opportunities that you want to present, like the things you put in the chat there, is we'll ask you questions the same way if you're comfortable with it. And of course, you can't talk about motivations without the disclosure from them to do it, but we'd like to just give you some suggestions for possibilities. So,
And so just, we can
Blake,
go through.
I'm gonna defer to our guest expert to moderate.
oh, Jesus, thank you.
And the only thing that I ask is we not talk too much about client motivation beyond retirement or just because this is one, recorded, and two, not everyone in the room is a broker. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So generally these exchange meetings, everybody has to be licensed. Everyone has to adhere to the code of ethics. Everything that we talk about is confidential. And I forgot about, the fact that you're recording this and that third parties might have a chance to look at it sort of changes what we'll talk about if there's anything that,
and just put an asterisk in that portion.
Yeah, the fact is, if there are things that the seller wouldn't want the world to know, because it turns out most sellers don't mind people knowing what they why they want to do it, and because it sort of explains why they'd get rid of a good property. So, but anyhow, but that's its own thing. So, all right. So I will start with you, Teresa. So go ahead and tell us what you have, and pretend you haven't talked about it yet.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Blake.
And this is the physical. What is it physically?
All right. So as he says, there are multiple portions to the moderating. And so explaining this property, it is an industrial property. So you have flexible use and it is on 4 parcels, 3 buildings. And right now it's over 12,000 square feet, the entire set of structures. But the owner occupies 3,750 of that. And so that will become vacant once it is either leased that space or sold. And so they are, 4 parcels, flex. It's located relatively close to O'Hare Airport. And with it being industrial, you have far more uses beyond the office, retail, et cetera. So you could have those uses, but also industrial. So there are tenants in place. And what else do you want to know about the building?
Okay. All righty. So as far as the physical about it, that's fine. We have it absolutely there. You have on the gross scheduled, you have it as projected rather than actual. So what is the actual right now?
The actual, so you see the net operating income. So that's what their actual is at the moment. The projected was based on leasing the space that the owner was retiring from. So right now, the owner does not have those dollars in the NOI. So they're not paying themselves. If they were to then lease that space that's remaining, this is what we would expect the income would be. It was at 139,000.
But what's our NOI?
Sorry. So I would have to do some
that's
quick
not
math, and I'm not ready right now.
That's
but
okay.
I do have the math on that, on the actual.
That's not a problem. All righty. So, basically now tell us about the owner, because we know enough about the property. It's well located. Tell us about the owner.
Okay, so without giving too much information, the owner has owned this property for a couple decades. They have been using that space for their own business. They are looking to retire, and so they wanted to cash out of this property. And they potentially could put it into something else, but they'd have to see what the options are out there. They could potentially sell or finance, for the right offer. And again, it depends on what the terms are.
Okay. Are they comfortable in their life where this money isn't what they're living off of?
I don't want to answer that here,
Okay.
But I would in an exchange session.
Okay, because that's the kind of thing to know. And there's a difference with clients. If this if it's money to live on, if it's investment money, makes a big difference a lot of times. And as far as what they may or may not take, but if you're not comfortable in that situation. So have you talked about seller carry financing terms?
We did talk about it. I think that they need to see what the offer is on the table.
Sure. Have you talked about taking other property?
They potentially would, depending on, so the answer is yes, always put an offer in, and we will say,
My question was, have you discussed it with
yes.
the clients?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So that's a key to these meetings is if, when you go to the meeting, is that your clients are prepared to understand that you're going to probably come back with offers that aren't just cash in a new loan. And, here we have a good cap rate, so it shouldn't be a problem. You have this on the market, right? You have it advertised on the internet to everybody in the world who knows it's for sale. And so we do our duty as brokers to do all of that. And then in addition to that, Teresa is taking this to marketplaces to look for alternative solutions if it hasn't sold for cash in the marketplace. Now
And so
there's
going through benefits, right? So
Yeah,
what I
absolutely.
had said is seller financing is possible, that it is a decent cap rate, that it is industrial, especially we have very, very low vacancy in industrial in the city. And that's hence why all the buyers want it to be completely vacant. So if someone was looking for just investment, the tenants would stay there long-term. The leases are till 2027. So they are interested in staying longer term. But if someone wanted to use it for something else, whether it be redevelopment or for their own owner use, that would be possible, either waiting in that time frame or buying the tenants out.
Are there buyout agreements in their leases?
There are not, but the owner does not want to approach them because they feel nervous that they don't want to scare off their tenants.
Okay. All right. No, I understand. It is a lot easier. And this is just for general information that, yeah, if you have buyout agreements in your leases already, when you do them, then if you do come to circumstances when you need to dispose of a property, gives you a little more flexibility on who can take it. But, so the next thing that we usually do in these meetings is, ask anybody, does anyone have any questions for us? Generally ask the moderator, who then asks the presenter, but of course they hear the question. So does anybody have any questions about the property or the people or the benefits? Okay. One I would ask is, would they lease that space back from day one until we found a new tenant in order to give us that cap rate?
I think they would consider that, yes.
And that's the right answer, because they need to say yes, depending on the whole rest of the deal. But that way they could stay there, it sort of in transition slowly out of the property as you find a new tenant. All righty. So what the next thing is, does anybody have a client who may be interested in taking this property or would say, hey, I'll take it under some terms and conditions? Okay. So I take, as Teresa knows, in general, I'm not looking for it. I'd like to find somebody who would want to own it, that I would be willing to finance it to. I would trade this property for some cash and paper, but I would want somebody who wants to buy it with seller carry financing. So if any of you, for your own portfolio or for your clients, think this wouldn't be a bad property to own, then, speak up to Teresa and we can probably find a way to put together the transaction. So any questions or any takers? Because as I was saying, the key is the takers, is finding people who say that there are ways that they would take it. And again, I just, goodness, I don't know how I'd get it leased up unless I guess Teresa would do that. So.
And what I like to see in these meetings is, even if you do not have a client, think of someone, whether it's another broker or it's you, whatever, how can we help each other as brokers? Because that's the other component of NCE and SEC, that they're trying to find not just creative ways of getting a deal done, but also help facilitate a transaction. Say, hey, maybe you know so-and-so. So the last time we had a session here, someone said, hey, I've got this land, and someone wasn't on the call that I knew, another broker, the Ruggieri's, who go to all these exchange meetings, who were looking for land. I said, you know what? I don't have a client right now looking for that product, but I do know another broker that might be interested. And so I introduced them. I don't know where that's going to go, but that's the whole point of us helping each other get these deals done.
Right. And everybody in the states pretty much. Yes, Steve.
The thing that I think Teresa is trying to communicate is, unlike Unlike the traditional real estate marketplace, the equity marketing, trading, and exchanging marketplace is a very collaborative and cooperative environment as opposed to a competitive environment. So when Teresa presents a property, or any one of us for that matter, present a property, the position that you want to find yourself in is, I like that property and I would do this, completely ignoring, dismissing. We really don't care what the seller wants. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean that quite the opposite, actually. We don't care what the seller wants. If you'll take that property with $1 million worth of widgets, then you should write what we call a mini offer, a transaction proposal. It's not a contract, it's an idea reduced to writing. Teresa, I will take that property if your client will accept my $1 million worth of widgets. And Teresa's going to go back to her client and say, we should accept this offer of $1 million worth of widgets, provided we can use what has been offered to us to get what we actually want. So Teresa woke up this morning with one industrial building in Chicago to take to the marketplace. She receives this offer of $1 million worth of widgets, and they wrestle back and forth a little bit and come up with some acceptable terms of how that deal might work out. And they accept it, subject to being able to use that property to get what they want. Next week, Teresa wakes up in the morning and she goes to the marketplace, and she's got that industrial building to offer, but she's also got $1 million worth of widgets that she can offer into the marketplace. Because if she finds someone that will take the $1 million worth of widgets, then her building is sold. If she finds somebody that wants her building, then her building is sold. By accepting that offer of anything at all that you would offer in for that building, Teresa has doubled her chances of getting a deal done. And you can spend anything you want to buy $1 million building and maybe get your deal done. But you'll never, ever know until you write out an idea. This is just an idea. This is not a contract. I could accept your building under these terms and conditions.
Yep, absolutely. And so by us working together, so no transaction ever closes unless both parties feel that they're better off after than they were before. So with buy and sell, that means this much money was more attractive to one person than the deed to the property. And then the other person said the deed to the property was more important than this amount of money. Now, that amount of money may be monthly payments and a down payment, but the two sides both agreed miraculously that they'd rather have the opposite kind of thing. And that's what happens with a regular buy-sell transaction. They're a miracle every time that they happen. It's the same thing, the same kind of thing happens in exchange. Nobody's going to close the exchange unless they feel better off after than they were before. And so the motivations, for instance, if you have a loan coming due, that piece of land that you never had any interest in and never would even consider, if it's that or nothing, plus a foreclosure on your record, you're taking that piece of land, and it's about the benefits. It's not so much about the specifics, but, everything from solving problems to creating dreams, all of that whole spectrum can be done through exchanging. And I think it's
amazing over the years, the number of times I've seen an income producing property, being traded for a piece of vacant land somewhere. And people always say, why would you trade income for vacant land? As difficult as it is to conceive, there are actually a segment of society that doesn't need income. In fact, income represents taxation to them. They have more than adequate income. They have plenty of resources. They're now at a point in their life where they're starting to have to take forced distributions from their IRAs and so forth. They don't want income. And so often somebody paying attention will recognize that and they'll be able to trade a piece of land because the person with the income property that no longer wants the income, they may not want the income, but they don't want to give up their equity. And so they're happy to go into a piece of land that they feel is a safe place to park their assets to be able to pass on to the next generation.
Yeah. And all of us have seen the development. So, 30, 40 years ago, the people would have bought that, 10 miles outside of Chicago, and now it's in the middle of town kind of thing. And and so the piece of land over time will build wealth and make money, but it's not cash flow. And so it's just a different set of benefits for a different person, but both of them are going to build wealth, because that's the key is, real estate. That's what we all learn. There's two kinds of property, real property and everything else. Real property maintains its value. The dollar goes down in value. That's why the prices go up, and we're happy to take those dollars. So, all righty.
And Blake, did you say you sent something to me? You sent either the benefits or a hierarchy. What did you send to me?
No, I didn't. I was glad that what you had sent out was basically asking, whether your people sell or carry, will they buy other property, will they add cash? And that's the easiest way to get rid of a piece of property, is to say, I'm going to go buy a bigger property and I'm going to add money to it. That's the easiest. And that's it doesn't get simpler than that. So, but anyhow, I'm interested to hear what everybody else has as far as inventory there in Chicago, and then listening to Steve make them offers. So.
All right. With that, does anyone else have questions? And we will end the recording once everyone has their questions answered. So raise your hand if you have any questions. I know that we went through that form, and what was very important is that I was asked to describe the property, to go through what the benefits are, and explain ownership. Those are the three components, right, Blake?
Yes.
And then
the benefits.
Yeah, benefits. And then also there's a hierarchy, which we didn't share here. We can do that later. And Blake, you are presenting information on your Thursday class as well. Are you presenting content in addition to the marketing?
So we have, and I think Asher sent you the flyer. If you can send it to all of your folks, I think we forwarded it to you. But we have at the beginning, Chuck Trice is going to speak for about an hour on equity marketing and introduction to how we do it, and how the numbers work and all that kind of stuff. Because you're assigned a person's assigned a number, and then you have package numbers, and we match them up to do the exchanges, explaining all of that and how the meetings work. And then I will do about an hour and 15 minutes or so on 1031 paper. What 1031 paper is it's taking seller carry financing and passing it through the 1031 process to the qualified intermediary. I do these deals quite a bit, but not I'd like to see it more popular with people. But part of it's also because it's very educational to think about it separately that way, and not just be in the straight one property for one property kind of way. And then also in this market especially, that's a way to get the best price for your property and still do a 1031.